I know from personal experience it can be tough to transition from a student nurse to a professional nurse. I remember when I started my first job in the emergency room, and I sat there twiddling my thumbs because I still had not successfully gotten an IV in, and I was about to hit the ground running. Little did I know that there was such a thing as nurse residencies, and that's why I'm excited to tell you about HCA Healthcare's nurse residency program. This program supports newly graduating nursing students at the early stages of their careers. HCA Healthcare's year-long nurse residency program helps first-year nurses transition from the classroom to working in the field with confidence. Plus, nursing residents get access to a range of opportunities to learn from specialists in various areas, such as ER, critical care ICU, and surgical services. And there's a variety of other great benefits. Learn more today at careers.hcahealthcare.com/residency. Again, that's careers.hcahealthcare.com/residency. HCA Healthcare is an equal opportunity employer.
Welcome to the Nurse Leader Network podcast with your host, Chris Racinos. Wherever you're going on your nurse leader journey, we're here to help you get there.
Welcome, everybody, to the Nurse Leader Network podcast. I am your host, Chris Racinos, and today we have somebody that I've been wanting to interview for, I want to say years. Like even before I had the podcast, I saw this person and was like, oh my God, she's a rock star, and just saw all of the amazing things that she is working on. And so I'd love to introduce our guest today, Charlene Platon. Welcome.
Hi, Chris. Thank you so much for having me. I've been wanting to do a podcast, talk to you for so long, and I've also been following you very closely. So really excited for this.
Oh my gosh, Charlene. So for those who don't know, Charlene is a glass ceiling breaker. She has a fantastic journey that I'm going to have her share. I won't spill the beans. You're going to have to stay tuned in to listen. But it has an amazing story and has just developed this app for nurses. And so, Charlene, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you went into nursing? We'd love to hear your story of where you're currently working. Where did it all start? How did you decide that you wanted to become a nurse?
Great. Thank you so much, Chris. And, with my journey of nursing, I actually come from a family of nurses. So my mother is an ICU nurse, and she's been working as an ICU nurse through COVID. My twin sister is a nurse, and she was trained and worked as a psychiatric nurse. And so it's definitely been in my family. And that was how I was originally introduced to the hospital, the healthcare industry. And I'm really grateful because honestly, I don't know if I would have been introduced to nursing any other way. So I went straight into nursing school after high school. I was fortunate to go to UC Irvine, University of California, Irvine for my undergraduate degree. And there was really when I immersed myself in different experiences in the healthcare industry. I volunteered for a nonprofit organization that really exposed me to the challenges and the complexities of the healthcare system. And so after I finished my undergraduate degree, I first worked as an acute care nurse in East Los Angeles. And I was working in a community hospital, and I just saw so much room for improvement when it came to quality of care, when it came to patient care processes and outcomes. And I had a lot of experiences too, where I saw gaps in, how we deliver our care. And that really was something that hit home for me. Before my first hospital job, I had actually worked as a medical coordinator for that nonprofit organization that I volunteered for. And so I worked with a lot of homeless clients, and I was helping them enroll for medical insurance, was helping to connect them with resources and helping them to transition from the hospital back into the community. And just through all these experiences, it really opened my eyes to how the healthcare system works in the United States, all the different areas for opportunity there. And from that, and from being in the acute care space, I was really inspired to go back into outpatient. And so I became a nurse practitioner. I went through my graduate studies. And it's just funny because after I finished my undergraduate studies, I really found myself really wanting to help healthcare on a broader level. And so I went straight into nursing leadership and advanced practice leadership. So my first position outside of graduate school was I was a manager of advanced practice at Stanford Healthcare. And I was supervising nurse practitioners and physician assistants in the inpatient setting. So I was kind of going inpatient, outpatient. And then as of April 2020, I transitioned to a role as director of ambulatory nursing at Stanford Healthcare. So now I am helping to support nurses in the ambulatory side and back in the outpatient setting. So it's been a really awesome experience, really great really a lot of diversity in the different experiences that I've had. But throughout all of this, I just found so many opportunities for innovation, for healthcare, and being able to become one of the Johnson & Johnson Nurse Innovation Fellows has really been a part of that as well. And so, that's just a really high level overview of my journey thus far. But currently I'm Director of Ambulatory Nursing, and I'm also in the process of pursuing the creation of our WellNurse App. And it's called Fifth Window. Formerly it was called WellNurse App. And I'm really excited to tell you all more about that. But that's really just my journey in a nutshell, and happy to expand on any of those topics.
I literally just wrote a whole bunch of notes because I have so many questions. Where do I start? I think my first question for you is, so you took a non-traditional route into leadership. I also did, where we went the advanced practice route and then ended up in leadership. When you were becoming a nurse practitioner, did you have any idea that you were going to end up in leadership, or was your dream to just, care for patients?
It's funny that you asked that, because when I was an acute care nurse, I distinctly remembered telling myself, I want to be in healthcare leadership. I want to be, I'm not sure how that will look like necessarily, but I know I wanted to be in leadership. And I was telling one of my colleagues, I think I want to be a healthcare leader. And I was telling them how I wanted to become a nurse practitioner and become into leadership somehow from that journey. And they told me point blank, oh, you can't be a healthcare leader by pursuing, your nurse practitioner degree. You have to go into your MHA program or some other leadership program. And I was just like, I don't know, I'm pretty sure I could do it. But I just thought that was interesting. And sure enough, I found myself in that position where I was really fortunate to have this transition into healthcare leadership. And I had to make a hard decision, because right after I finished nurse practitioner school, I was actually accepted into an NP residency program. And it was an amazing program. It really checked all the boxes, the population I wanted to serve, the training, the cohort I would be with. And I had to decide, I had the opportunity to go straight into the more traditional route of doing the clinical role first as a family nurse practitioner, or going straight into the management route. And I chose the management route, and I have not regretted it. And it's really, it's been an awesome journey.
Tell me more about that journey. How did you, not every day do you graduate NP school and then somebody's like, hey, do you want to be a manager of all these NPs and PAs? What'd that look like? Was it networking, or give us the dish?
Yeah, I tell people all the time who are in the healthcare profession to network, because I love to reach out to people and connect with people. And I think I just love to network naturally. And so that was really how I found out about the opportunity. It was really during one of my courses in my graduate school studies. We had a leadership class, and we had a guest lecturer who was from Stanford Healthcare, and he was talking about performance improvement, leadership, and all these things that really spoke to me. And I just thought to myself, wow, after this class, everyone's going to want to talk to him, and everyone's going to want his business card and information, because this is just amazing. And then after the class ended, it was really just me and, I think one other classmate of mine who went up to him and just wanted to connect. But I think it really starts with yourself, knowing what you want and what you want to pursue. And then from that, finding other people who have that like-minded, profession or passion, and then connecting with them. And then when I think you find your niche, that's really when all these opportunities open up. And that's what happened. I kept in contact with that individual, and it just led me to find out about the management opportunity. And I was really fortunate to have that position. But I think without putting yourself out there, if you don't put yourself out there, you really close a lot of doors that are not necessarily locked, but you just have to find them and open them.
Oh, I love that train of thought. And I love that thinking. And I think it's really great advice. A lot of the jobs I've gotten has totally been because of networking. It's not a blind application. So yeah, I agree with that. Okay. So my next question, you mentioned so briefly and nonchalantly about being a Johnson & Johnson fellow. That is big. Okay. So tell the listeners what that is if they haven't heard about it, and how you became one.
Great. Thank you so much, Chris. And oh my gosh, I love this program. There's so much I would love to say, and I know we only have a limited amount of time, so I'll try to keep it brief. But the Johnson & Johnson Nurse Innovation Fellowship Program is a 2-year program that equips nurses with leadership, innovation, and entrepreneurship acumen. And so it's a collaboration between Johnson & Johnson, the Center for Creative Leadership, or CCL, and also Nurse Approved, which is a company that helps to promote nursing executives and nursing leadership. And so, this collaboration was really the first fellowship cohort that they've had like this. So this was the first time that they've had this program. And so they had 12 positions for nurses to participate in this initial cohort. And so, in the span of the 2 years, each of us fellows are tasked to have a project that we're working on and that we're focusing on for, in innovation. And that could be really broad. We have a really diverse cohort. There are some members of our cohort who are working on the front lines, providing direct patient care. There's also other members of our cohort who are CEOs, business owners, entrepreneurs. And so there's other members too who are professors in academia. So it's a really, really diverse group of nurses, and your innovation project could be really different depending on what your interest is. And so for my project, I am really focusing on this app for nursing well-being, Fifth Window, and that's just the program in a nutshell. But they really equip you with these different learning opportunities and networking opportunities, so you could expand, your knowledge in all these different facets and to help promote your innovation.
I know you said that you guys were kind of like one of the initial cohorts. Are they still accepting applications every year, or where are they at right now?
I think they do want to accept. The plan was to have more cohorts in the future, and actually with the future cohorts, the previous cohorts would be serving as mentors. So there would be some sort of collaboration. And I don't know yet when the next round of applications might be. Hopefully it'll be soon, but we will keep you posted because we would love to keep this going.
Awesome. Okay, so you've mentioned Fifth Window twice or 3 times now, and I know about WellNurse App. How did that happen? How did you go from, okay, I'm now director of APP here at Stanford, and I'm working on all this stuff, and now, bam, I'm like an entrepreneur. Like, how did that happen? And tell us about that.
Well, I've always wanted to be in entrepreneurship one way or another. I feel like I've been wanting to be an entrepreneur for years, and I just didn't really know what that would look like or what that would entail. But in terms of the current project or company that I'm pursuing, the reason I didn't always think about having a company that was focused on well-being for healthcare professionals or for nurses, but because of the pandemic and because of all the challenges, there was just so many challenges. Just name one, I feel like we faced it in the last year and almost 2 years. But I really saw that there was an opportunity and a gap that had to be filled when it came to providing resources for nursing well-being specifically. And from my own experiences with the pandemic, I've been on my own journey of well-being. It wasn't always easy, the road for nursing for me. Nursing school is really challenging. And it was difficult. And I really had to put myself first in order to continue on the profession. And I think a lot of nurses can resonate with that. But through it all, I felt so alone almost. So I wanted to see, is there a way to connect all these dots, connect these resources with nurses with well-being? And when I was in nursing myself and as a bedside nurse, I did notice that there were gaps in terms of how can I find these resources. But then when the pandemic hit, I myself was going through, another journey of well-being in terms of having to prioritize myself and my self-care. I actually experienced these really, really pretty severe panic attacks early on in the pandemic. And I think that it all stemmed from, since I didn't have my normal distractors, like going to the gym, going traveling, or doing a bunch of things, I finally was just sitting with myself, and all of these things kind of hit me at once. And so that manifested as a panic attack. And then I went to try to seek therapy and resources, but I was quoted that it would take me up to 12 months to find a therapist that I could see.
Wow.
In person, or just within my healthcare system, or within my, within the resources that I had available to me. So I sought telehealth services, and, I had to do a lot of digging myself to see what was out there, but it was really challenging. It's kind of interesting how if you want to have those resources, you do have to do a lot of self-initiative and digging. And then eventually I was able to find a therapist through telehealth. It was great. And I did the multiple wellness programs. I've been doing daily meditation, and that has been a game changer. And it just, through all these programs and through all this this work of actually prioritizing myself and actually prioritizing my mental well-being, I was just thinking like, wow, nurses should really have something for them that they could really use to help promote their self-care. And throughout all this is when the hackathon happened. So the Nurse Hack for Health in May 2020 happened, and I joined that hackathon alongside Chris Caulfield, who is the Chief Nursing Officer of IntelliCare. And I was like, oh my God, Chris is joining this. I have to join with him. And we joined together in the same team under the Resiliency and Self-Care Challenge. And so I was just so excited that they had that track, and we joined that. We had a team of 10 people, and it was just really awesome to see so many nurses within our team who were really excited about this help for nurses. And then from that, we were able to win the hackathon under that track. It was really exciting, and that was really where the idea for Fifth Window, originally called WellNurse App, was formed. And so from there, we continued to work on it. We've been still meeting every single week after that hackathon, and it's in fact almost our 1-year anniversary from the hackathon. So it's really exciting to see where we are now.
So did you keep from that hackathon all like the entire 10 members? Is it still the same team? And like, where are you at now with the app? Like, describe the app to us.
Yeah. So with the team members, we actually started with a group of 10. So there was 8 nurses and 2 technical experts from the hackathon. And then from there, we were able to reduce the size to 3 nurses. And then we found 3 nurses from the original hackathon team, including myself. And then we found a developer who had worked with us and joined our team, and he has developed the app. And so with the app itself, it has 3 main features. And the first one is a check-in. And so the check-in really allows the nurse to easily assess how they're doing overall. And then from that assessment, they'll be matched with an intervention to help with their self-care. So they could be matched with a meditation practice or maybe another practice to help them, just in terms of however they're feeling. And so that's one of the features that we have. And then the other main feature that we have is our Connect feature. It's our community platform. So we built our own community within the app so that nurses could, learn from each other and share with each other their experiences in terms of their self-care journeys. And our goal is really to destigmatize seeking self-care and to make people be okay and be comfortable with with sharing their experiences, but most importantly, to make them feel that they're not alone, or to let them know that they're not alone. Because I know I felt very alone during my own journey when I was experiencing these different things. But just to see other nurses on the platform, I think makes a big difference. But and then the last feature is the practices themselves. They could just, the nurses could easily access these practices if they'd like. But that's what we're starting with, and that's how it looks like in its current state.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And I know that a lot of the folks listening right now are like, oh my God, where was that when I needed it? And it might be right now that you need it. So you guys are accepting beta testers. How, if there's a listener and they're like, oh my gosh, this sounds awesome, like I want to be a part of it prior to full on launch, what do they do?
Yeah, thank you for asking, Chris. We are launching our open beta test on May 6th, the first day of Nurses Week. And we are going to have information available on our website. And you could find us at www.fifthwindow.com. You could also find us at wellnurseapp.com. We still have that domain. So either way, we're going to have the information there. So if you are interested, right now you could sign up just to express your interest, and we will email you directly if you sign up through our platform. And so you could also follow us on social media, and all of our social media links are on our website. So fifthwindow.com or wellnurseapp.com, and we will have a lot more information there. But we could have up to 10,000 nurses for this beta test. So we are really looking to see, how many nurses. We're not sure yet how many might be interested, but we welcome anyone and every nurse who's interested, and hope to build a product that's truly, nurse-led, nurse-driven, nurse-tested, and designed. So we're really, really excited about that.
Okay, so why is it formally WellNurse App? What happened with the name change?
Yeah, so Chris, you might be familiar with this since you're an entrepreneur too, and And, entrepreneurship can be such a wild journey.
To say the least.
I'm sure you have a lot of stories too, but so one of the most difficult decisions that I've come to find in pursuing this startup is that, and any of my team members will tell you, one of the most difficult decisions is creating a name. And I think that's one of the most difficult decisions. And it's really tough because if you look at the market, there's tons and tons of companies out there today. And all of these companies could have great names, and they could all be names that you've thought of already. And so, we had originally thought of the name for WellNurse, and it turns out there's another company that has a similar name. And so we had to change that name. We don't want to cause any confusion, especially because, it does sound like a similar name overall. So we just don't want to confuse anyone who's looking at the two different companies. So there was that. And we actually changed to another name, but that name, we had our legal team do a trademark search, and there was actually another company that had sounded like our second name that we thought of. And so we had to think of a third name. And so we actually looked at this list of, 1,000 names, and we saw Fifth Window, and we were thinking, Fifth Window is really unique. It's still, and it really resonates with us because it really covers the different dimensions of well-being. Because you have personal well-being, you have your physical well-being, you have your mental well-being, you have professional well-being, and you have organizational well-being. But the Fifth Window actually encompasses all those areas, and that's really the holistic well-being. So we really wanted to cover that, and we thought that was really unique and interesting, and that's how we decided on that name. And so far it seems to be going well. So we're going to continue to pursue that and see how it goes.
I love that. First of all, I love the name because it is like when I hear Fifth Window, I think of like somebody on the outside looking in, or maybe somebody on the inside looking out. And reflection is just such a huge piece of your mental wellness. And just being able to even see others so that you can support them through there. So I think that name is like perfectly fitting. I love it. And I love that
Chris, your interpretation's amazing. I'm going to write that down. That is, yeah. I'm going to save that. I'm going to post that.
I love it. It's true, right? Doesn't it? Like so I think it sounds good. And I love that you shared your trademark journey because the Nurse Leader Network, before I even chose it, I was looking up names, and I was able to get it trademarked. And I found that the initials, everybody's already starting to call us by our initials, which is NLN. But NLN is trademarked. So I cannot use NLN, right? The National League for Nursing.
Oh, no.
So I have to remind people no, we're not NLN. We are Nurse Leader Network. I know NLN shorter, but that is a whole other organization. And don't get me into this liability, people. And so, I totally get it with the whole trademark infringement. So those of you who are listening, if you're trying to start a business and you want a trademark, please look it up on USPTO before you go. And if not, you'll just, you learn from both of us and start it all over.
We could, if anyone has any questions, just ask me if you know.
I know. I filed my own. I literally was I am going to file my own. And I filed, because I had filed one before for a restaurant that I was getting started. And so I kind of knew how to do it. And it was really good because I was okay, well, mine was pretty generic enough that I was able to get it trademarked under the second tier of trademarking. So very cool. Okay. So I'm really struck and resonate with your story around just feeling isolated and feeling, that really was the gap that you guys were trying to solve. I'd love to hear more about your journey that. You said you started having panic attacks. I'd love for us to dig into that. And the reason is because, I think a lot of the listeners probably have had moments of that. And I know for myself, when I'm with patients, I can tell them you're having a panic attack, right? They'll come in with chest pain and we've ruled everything out. We know, that there's something going on, stress, and we're no, you're having a panic attack. But then in yourself, you don't see that. And so what was your moment where you were oh my gosh, I need to focus on myself. I have to reframe what I'm doing?
Yeah, I'm glad that you asked that question, Chris, because a lot of the times there, you might not promote your own self-care until something happens, something more major. And for me, the aha moment was, in terms of panic attacks, for me, the defining moment was when I was driving, I was in my car by myself, and then I had a panic attack. It just came on very strongly. And for me, panic attacks will manifest physically first, and then it'll start to turn into, the racing thoughts, and it'll start to impact me mentally after. But during this particular time, I was having a panic attack. And then it got to the point that it felt like I was actually going to have a heart attack, or I actually thought I was having a stroke or a heart attack. And I was doing all the tests. Like, I was like, okay, can I smile? I was like trying to see if I actually was having a stroke. And I was like, oh my God, can I lift my arms? Is it symmetrical and everything? And then I was like, is my chest okay? I was like, okay, I have like some aspirin somewhere, but so I was going through all these things. And then later I thought to myself, oh no, it's a panic attack. And it was just to the point my whole body was, it was just a full body experience. And it's really scary. And, when it's really scary, you have to like, if you're driving, it's really dangerous. And so that's when it really hit me like, okay, I need to do something because I was by myself. This happened. And if this happens again, I really need to be able to help myself, because you can't always depend on others, especially this particular time I was driving. It was at night. No one else was there on the freeway. So that's really one of the many ways that self-care could really benefit. But for my journey, that was really the moment that I was saying to myself, okay, I really need to take this seriously. And this is not just a small thing. So I think that was probably the defining moment for me.
Well, did you struggle and I asked this from a place of having a daughter that I lost to suicide, but also having my own mental health struggles. Right after I lost my daughter to suicide, I then went on to have my own attempt, and struggled for a long time after her passing. And I knew it was bad. Like, for me, I knew it was bad, and I knew I just was not coping well. But I felt, because I was a leader, that I had to keep like my armor on, and so I think that delayed me in seeking treatment, because I just kind of was like, no, I have to get to work, and I have these nurses I have to take care of, and I have, this family. And so, I mean, like, for you, how were you able to bust through? Because I know for a lot of listeners, they might just be struggling like with embarrassment or shame, or, not wanting to move on and get treatment. How do they move on and then like even pick up your app, right? Like, maybe that might not, but there might be some resistance there.
Yes, thank you, Chris. And thank you for sharing about your challenges and what you've gone through as well, because, I've heard your story before, and every time, it just really lets me realize and understand that everyone is going through so many challenges and we don't know. And that's why it's all the more important to have some more of these resources available to nurses. And I do agree that, as a leader myself too, it's really easy to keep the armor and keep the certain persona because you feel like you should. And you feel like if you don't, it could be really, it could impact the staff or whatnot. But I do think that, when it comes to self-care, it wasn't the first time that I had sought therapy. I had actually used therapy before, and cognitive behavioral therapy as well. And I really found so much success in using those different modalities in the past because, I've experienced anxiety and depression in the past. And during those times, I really didn't see other ways that I could help myself. But I think the first thing to recognize is just having the awareness, because it's hard if you don't have the awareness, and it could show up differently for different people. But for me, I just knew that I wanted to change and have access to these resources because it was impacting my life. And so for the depression, impacting my studies. And then for the anxiety, it was impacting my ability to socialize because I found I was getting more anxious in social situations, and that didn't happen before. I'm someone who's really extroverted. So having anxiety and having that social anxiety was really new, and it was really scary. But then I would also get the anxiety and it would show up at my work. So it would impact my work too. So I think once these different things show up and they could actually impact more than just your internal self, that's when I personally was motivated, but that might be when other people are motivated. But it could, again, it could show up differently for different people. And, but I've always been open-minded in terms of different therapies, alternative therapies. And so I feel that it was, I feel like for me, it was just, if it's something that's helpful, I'll try it. So that's, I do think it's a mindset thing, but but I'll just say too, just in terms of my culture as, as a Filipinx American, I do know a lot of your culture could also impact how you seek help or what resources you seek. And, mental health is a stigma within my, my culture too, and ethnicity. So it's really a personal journey, and hopefully that helps to answer the question. But I do think it'll show up differently for people, and you should really listen to your intuition when you do need help. I think your body will tell you that, and I think it's really important to have that awareness and to respond to that.
Yeah, I agree. I also think it's important to take initiative before it gets too bad, because we think we can handle it, and then before you know it, you're spiraling. And at that point, it takes a lot more to get out of it than had you begin to seek care when you were having those little kind of maybe headaches every day, or just tired, or whatever it was that you had. So I think those are all great tips. In terms of your own team, so you're leading now, I'm assuming, a ton of nurses. What do you do to foster an environment of well-being within the team that you're leading?
Yeah, that's a great question, Chris. And in my current role in leadership, I actually don't have any direct reports that I supervise, but I do work with a lot of different people and different teams. And I think that one of the ways that you could foster well-being in your workplace, even if it's not a team that you're directly supervising, is to be vulnerable. And I think that in healthcare, it's really difficult to be very vulnerable because, our culture of medicine is one of, having a certain persona in terms of not showing any weakness or any signs of that. And so I think that's challenging. But I think in terms of being vulnerable, just being authentic in terms of how you show up at work, if you're having a bad day, being transparent about that. And I always, when someone asks me, how am I doing? Sometimes I really struggle with that because there could be a lot of things that are impacting my day, but I might not want to share, truthfully how I'm feeling. So, but sometimes I do. Sometimes I say it's been a really challenging time. And I've found that when I've been more vulnerable and actually authentic, or trying to be a little bit more open about my own experiences, I receive the same in return. And I think that having those connections with colleagues, I think when other people see that, they open up, and then I've tried it in meetings too, in bigger meetings, and other people will say the same. So I feel like it's really creating that space where other people could feel safe and comfortable to be in that position. That really helps to foster well-being, but also just being an example. And I think, I need to work on this too, but I think being able to take breaks outside of your office, which is, I struggle with that a lot. And I have the means, I definitely have the means to take a break outside, but, that's challenging. So, but I think setting the example, drinking water, taking breaks, actually going to lunch, and finding deeper connections or deeper ways to connect with your colleagues by being vulnerable. I think those are all really helpful things.
Yeah, those are. And it's so easy to get sucked into, especially when you're not, especially when you're a salaried employee, right? So maybe you're not an hourly employee. It's so easy to be sucked into feeling every single minute of your day and then beyond and then some. But yeah, I think some of the best moments I had at my job were I'd be okay, listen, we're going outside because I just need to go outside, and we're going to walk, and, we can talk about whatever you want to talk about, but we're doing it outside. We're not doing it inside. And your desk gets cleaner too, because then you don't have all the crumbs from your lunch on it, on your keyboard. So
I know it does. My desk was really, yeah.
I know. I realized when I was oh my gosh, there's so many crumbs on my desk. I need to stop eating at my desk. This is ridiculous. I need to go eat at an actual table. Oh my God.
It's more important now too with this virtual reality that we're in, because we are just constantly on our screens. And something that I do miss about having in-person meetings was that you actually had to walk from room to room. Mm-hmm. And the walking would actually be a little quick mental health break, because you're actually walking. Sometimes you're going outside. Sometimes you're just being more mindful. And so I think that really makes a big impact. And I could actually see the difference, not having those legitimate walking breaks in between meetings and giving my brain some time to process. And also just seeing people, it's just a very different experience when you're just hopping on a call from call to call to call, and you're not outside, and, you don't have those kind of forced breaks.
Yeah, that's true. I hadn't even thought about that, but that's true. That's right. Our hallways are where we like catch up, like, hey, what'd you do this weekend? Or, oh my God, I like your shoes or whatever. So yeah, we need to
Hmm.
have like a hallway Zoom, right? We need to create like a hallway Zoom in between our meetings. Like we can come walk by and see
I
people.
know. Hmm. I know. That'd be great.
So for your app, we talked about like what leaders can do to foster wellness, within their teams. For the beta testing, would you recommend nurse leaders to like maybe even have like groups of people sign up for the app, or what does that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would say that, if there is a healthcare organization that would like their teams to sign up, I think that would be great. If it's larger, that could also be an option. I think it really just depends on what each group is interested in, and if a healthcare leader wants to sign up, their team, that could be something that they do. Or if it's just an individual nurse or even the healthcare leader themselves, they could also join the group. It could be interesting for for everyone to be on it. One thing that's challenging though, and as we've been asking for more feedback on our app, is because this is so new in terms of destigmatizing mental health and being more vulnerable. There has been a lot of requests for more anonymity, especially in the community section, and it could be challenging because if you have to kind of tread that fine line between being vulnerable, but then at the same time, it's hard to share certain things, and so how do you find that balance? Because I do know that some people did not want to engage in the community because they were afraid of who else might be reading, or they wanted to make sure that they were anonymous. So we are looking into that too, and just finding ways to still promote these opportunities for nurses to share, but also protecting their safety and their comfort level. So
Maybe it could be something like, I don't know if you've ever seen any of those like Alcoholic Anonymous apps or like those sobriety apps, but they have like just enough privacy where you're not going to say like, oh my gosh, my boss is on the app. But they also then are like very human as well, where like, if you want to upload a picture, like you're free to upload a picture. And if you want, but you don't have to, you can also go under like, your pseudonym or whatever. But then I guess that's also like, do you want to be like sharing your wellness in front of people, a bunch of pseudonyms? I don't know. So yeah, maybe there's probably not like a perfect answer.
yeah, and that's great though, having those different options, because people have expressed, if I have the option to be anonymous or not, that'd be great. If I have the option to share my photo or not, that's also great.
Yeah.
So I think in that case, having more options is actually better.
Yeah. Wow. Well, we are coming to a close. Like, I feel like I could talk to you forever. Every time I talk to you, I feel like I can talk to you forever. And this is not going to be the last time that I invite you onto the show. So I will be bringing her back on some point because she's fabulous, and I can't wait to hear what's next for Fifth Window. But this has been a pleasure, Charlene. If folks want to reach out to you and find you, where can they find you?
Yes, if anyone is interested in the beta test, or if they just want to learn more about us, you could visit us at our website, fifthwindow.com or wellnurseapp.com. And that's where you're going to find our contact information and our social media platforms. So feel free to join our different communities there. We do have an Instagram, we have a Facebook, and we have a Twitter page. So feel free to find all those links on our main website. And we will have all the information too about our open beta test there as well. So if you're interested, you could express your interest now or wait until it's closer to National Nurses Week, and we will be sharing more information about that.
Oh, I can't wait. It's going to be so much fun. It has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Chris. I really appreciate everything that you're doing as well for promoting mental health and well-being.